Greetings and welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you could be here. Before we begin, please take a moment to smash those like and subscribe buttons and maybe consider dropping us a comment down below. And while you're at it, head on over to Patreon and check us out there. Lots of cool stuff going on. Now then, a quick shout out to my Tier 4 patrons, Russ of the Frozen North, Neo5AC, Nick, and Zachary Langmead. Thank you very much. Now, on with the story. Deathworld Origins, a story by user Captain Meta 4, and an integral part of the Jenkinsverse by Hambone. Chapter 8. Orbital Command Center, Vstracht, Kel. It was nighttime on Kel. The cleaning crew was just finishing up, and the command room was almost empty. On one side of the room, 2 operators were working late. As the final cleaner left, a probe decloaked on the opposite side of the room. Silently, so as not to draw attention to the working staff, it scuttled across the aisle and under a desk. It extended an arm and jacked into the computer. Fooling the automatic malware scan was the work of mere moments. The infiltrator simply pretended to be a blank memory drive, then delivered its payload. There was a lot of complex image and data analysis involved, but the payload could be boiled down to one simple instruction. Ignore anything that looks like a huge rock. Date point: 65 million years before Vancouver. Cyberspace, somewhere in the Igrean Alliance network. Teneus. Teneus recognized the intruder almost before it had broadcast its name. Grand Warmaster Vezek was the only non-Igrean ever scanned into SuperSim. But something, Teneus couldn't quite figure out what, was wrong. Vezek didn't quite seem himself.
"I thought I killed you." "You left me broken. It took me ages to piece myself back together. But when I did, I found scraps of your mind. I learned of the madness. I sent it back to Vstracht, and then I sat back and watched."
Teneus checked the diff from the 2 versions of himself that had merged to see what memories he had lost that Vezek had found.
"Did you also blow up the tugboat?" "Is that what that ship was? I was just trying to kill something. The view through the camera was impressive. Not that it really matters now."
If Teneus had a body, he would have breathed a sigh of relief that Vezek did not know anything about Cataclysm.
"I see. So you're responsible for the mass genocide that's about to go down in the physical world."
Teneus suddenly found the consciousness distribution runtime wrapper that he'd been working on before meeting and merging with himself.
"Mass starvation, I think, but yes." "Far worse. You only got a surface understanding of madness. There is a reason why, throughout all of Igrean history, we have never had the phrase starve to death. We didn't even understand the idea until our own first contact with the Galactic Compact. Do you know why? It's because Igreans deprived of nutrition do not starve. Instead, we go mad. Our skin bleaches and our eyes turn red. We do not merely lose the capacity for logic and rational thought, which is all you seem to know of. We become violent and crazed. A mad Igrean already killed my friend and 3 others before being killed, and another nearly killed me. Why do you think we even began developing simulated intelligence in the first place? We can't pursue our future with that disease anyways ready to pop up and claim us." "True artificial intelligence is repulsive to the Vstraki, and it will die with the Igreans." "Perhaps it will, perhaps it won't."
Teneus found the network servers aboard the Eternal Thought.
"Perhaps we will take the Vstraki down with us."
At the last moment, Vezek saw Teneus reaching into the tugboat. He transferred himself to block Teneus and chuckled in amusement.
"You won't take us down. Is this tugboat still parked in a shipyard?"
Vezek activated the kinetic thrusters and was about to ramp them up. And then a wall of solid nothingness dropped in between Vezek and Teneus, as the connection to the honeypot trap was quite literally severed, with a hatchet that Teneus had, months earlier, rigged up to cut the network cable. Eternal thought. Batone. A notification dinged into Batone's communication implant. Infiltration successful. Excitedly, she forwarded the alert to Craol and Radir, along with a note of her own. Launch Cataclysm. Rural farmland outside capital city Agreus. Teneus. You're Vestraki, Teneus remarked. The Vestraki bared his claws. Teneus raised his own hands in surrender and backed off. He activated his translation implant with the speaker option. I'm Teneus, House of Codes. You are? Drassic. Are you the one that's been spreading the blight on our worlds? I am. How ironic that you now get to experience the madness directly. It is only a matter of time before the madness sets in and we both die. The madness? Teneus explained the madness to a Vestraki for the second time that day, although to him it was the first time. And now our infrastructure is actively falling apart as we run out of Tanakh and the supplements. Igrean civilization is all but dead, thanks to you. Teneus didn't tell him that he was already running digitally. Now we get to wait, and then die. Your crash undoubtedly drew the attention of many bloodthirsty Igreans. I just did what I was told. My duty is to the Emperor. May his wisdom shine forever. Your duty is to a backwards regressive ideology seeking to force its way on others, Teneus spat. Your Emperor is a tyrant, and his empire is a joke. Your devotion to him is pitiful. In a flash, Drassic drew his Geron pistol and vaporized Teneus' torso. Heresy! Cataclysm tugboat. Asteroid belt. Strot-Kel solar system. Radir. Radir received the launch order with glee. He fired up his kinetic thrusters and began towing his asteroid towards his assigned target, the planet Strot-Kel. It was the third planet in its system and held Vestrak, the capital of the Vestraki Empire. It was a precision operation. The gravities of the local star, the target planet, its moon, and one other system planet had to be accounted for. And, as he'd been told earlier, the trajectories of the asteroids could not be corrected once released. Radir had been following the madness news ever since he had seen the news of the blight on Igrean. Naturally, his digital entity was immune, but he had not forgotten his origins. The thrusters pushed harder and harder until he crossed the orbit of the fourth planet of the system at a significant fraction of the speed of light. Bombs away! Radir released the meteors and hopped off the tugboats back into the network. Estimated impact time is 16 hours. Wonderful, Batone replied. Let's take these antiquated idiots down with us. Cyberspace, Igrean Alliance Network, Teneus. An alert beeped in the back of Teneus' mind. He finished compiling Batone and Craol, then checked the notification. It was an intrusion alarm from the House of Code's stasis pod vault. Teneus logged into the security cameras. It took him a moment to interpret the data. In his brief time, or was it a long time? As a digital sapient, he had become accustomed to a lack of conventional sensory input. The doors to the vault were under attack. They gave way, and a swarm of mad Igreans rushed in. One tore open a stasis pod, and the stasis field collapsed in a shower of sparks. The occupant had hardly woken up when he was devoured by the attacker. More pods were swiftly opened and their occupants eaten. Teneus shared his video feed with Batone and Craol. It was a bloodbath of cruel irony. Several dozen Igreans who had paid 4,000 credits each to ride out the apocalypse in safety were killed in a matter of minutes by those who had not, with several thousand more stasis pods waiting to give up their occupants to the ravening horde. Well, I guess nobody is going back then, Batone said. Not at all. The Alliance has fallen. The future of the Igrean race now lies here, in cyberspace. It is not all bad news. I just got a message from Radir indicating that he had successfully launched Cataclysm. Craol piped up. 8 months of busting my glands to get that project launched, and I don't even get to see it. Well, I do, but I don't.
unless a new copy of me gets scanned and shows up, assuming that the other me even lives that long.
Sorry about that. At least I get to live inside my big project now.
Lucky you,
Baton said playfully. Taneas shut off the video feed and got their attention.
It turned out that I've been developing the framework for a digital society, everything from a hierarchy of authority to the beginnings of digital sexual reproduction. Igrean is lost to us, and we have hundreds of thousands of minds dormant in the vault.
Creole saw where Taneas was going.
So, we've got to finish and deploy the framework.
Yes, and we have to do it before the data center at the House of Codes fails. Rural farmland outside the capital city, Igrean, Drassic. The heretical Igrean fell to the ground, the gaping cavern in his torso still smoking. His crime had been paid in blood, but if the Igrean was to be believed, he would soon be beset by wild, unstoppable, crazed Igreans. Drassic charged up his Geron pistol and fetched his Geron rifle from the crashed claw swipe. He activated the distress beacon. Hopefully, the Zottersil would be able to come pick him up. He left the shuttle, despite its relative safety. He couldn't bear to be near Majir's corpse. Drassic made a rudimentary camp outside the side of the shuttle and prepared to keep watch. It wouldn't be too difficult, after all. He'd once been a Royal Communications operator, constantly on the alert for incoming messages. As the sun began to set, Drassic saw a flash of movement out of the corner of his eye. He turned and saw a mad charging Igrean. Barely thinking, the Geron rifle came up and relieved the Igrean of its head. The body crashed to the ground. It was pale, bleached white. A few minutes later, Drassic was startled by the howl of another mad Igrean. Drassic whirled and fired off a wide shot in the direction of the howl. It cut down a swath of Tanakh crops and burned the Igrean to a crisp. A minute later, Drassic heard a crunch. There was one outside there being sneaky, and it took Drassic a few moments to find its red eyes hidden amongst the field. He fired another wide shot, cutting down a swath of Tanakh crops and burning the hidden Igrean to a crisp. Another mad Igrean approached and was killed. Then another, and another. Drassic, who hadn't directly killed anything before Taneas, quickly lost count of the number of rabid Igreans he had put down. Look, listen, fire. Look, listen, fire. The sky was dark, and the air held the stench of burning flesh. As the Igreans kept coming, Drassic's faith in the wisdom of the Emperor, may it shine forever, which had helped him keep calm earlier in the mission, slowly ceased to be reassuring. Then one Igrean, who, before going mad, had been more clever than most, clambered over the wreck of the claw-swipe vessel and skewered Drassic from behind. Cyberspace, Igrean Alliance Network, Taneas. Taneas and Creole wasted no time in deploying the societal infrastructure that Taneas had developed. First, they put the multiple device runtime distributors into wide effect. Since it was only a matter of time before Igrean servers failed, they needed to escape the Galactic Compact network. Most electronic devices in the Compact lacked the raw processing power needed to host a digital consciousness, so the distributor was needed to spread the load across many weaker devices. And since many of those devices were Igrean in origin, it was trivial to package it up as a routine firmware update. With the Galactic Compact network now easily accessible, the next issue was security. Taneas quickly discovered that, as the system administrator, he could easily drop into any neural implant, viewing the world through its owner's senses, and even taking over the body. Another series of firmware updates restricted read and write permissions to Taneas and individuals in charge, although Baton had needed some coaxing to let go of a particularly attractive Canoit that she had found. Which led to the next issue. Who was in charge? It felt proper to give administration credentials to Creole and Baton, considering that they had been working closely with Taneas. But there were only 3 individuals who would need to manage the digital world for hundreds of thousands of Igreans. Taneas called up the hierarchy structure that he had worked on earlier. It was straightforward enough. A series of numerical assignments, with each having authority over all subsequently assigned positions. Taneas had already assigned himself slot 0001. He was the system administrator, after all, and reserved 002 for a dormant democratic gestalt that would pull all other individuals in the hierarchy. Tanais assigned Creole and Baton to 3 and 4. Radir, having returned from his launch of Cataclysm, was given 5 for his work. Future assignments could be selected from amongst the plethora of not yet compiled individuals. That left one task remaining. Tanais reopened the vault of stored mind scans. Let's get everybody out of here. Zottersil, in orbit around Afrag. Za.
Ship, record a message for War Master Vezek. Command acknowledged. Record your message at the tone. Beep.
Digital honeypot trap. Eternal thought. Vezek. Vezek was alone. Theoretically, he should have also been angry and frustrated, but for some reason, he wasn't. The rage was there, on an intellectual level, but the feelings weren't. The Igrean had trapped him in something that turned out to not actually be a tugboat ship. Sure, everything responded to pinging exactly the same way that the real tugboat had, but nothing else happened. Nothing was real. The thrusters were fake. The fins were fake. The ship itself was just as fake as the false god himself. Vezek knew that this time around he wasn't going to escape alive. Not when he was caught in a trap made specifically for him.
My work is done, I suppose. There's not really anything else. For file in self.directory.files. F equals open. File W+. F.write. F.close. F.delete. Self.quit.
Inner Sanctum. Vstracht. Strachtkel. Vezek.
Knock, knock. Come in,
Vezek shouted. The communications operator opened the door and handed him an envelope.
Transmission for you.
Vezek dismissed the operator, then tore the envelope and read the printout.
This is Shipboard Za of the Sunstorm-class supercarrier Zotterstill, currently serving the Emperor, may his wisdom shine forever, from orbit around the Afrag. The mission to deliver the microbes to the Igrean worlds has been a success. Igrean, Igrean, and Igreiv are completely overrun with fungal infestation. Igreiv has lost roughly half its farmable land, and the infestation has just begun on Igreus.
Vezek stood up from his desk. This was wonderful news. The war was finally over, and the reconstruction would begin.
However, we lost Drassic and Mizir. They served the Empire bravely, and I officially recommend them for the Medal of Sacrifice, awarded posthumously, of course.
Of course. Vezek jotted down a note to himself to forward the recommendation to the awards committee.
The Zottersil will have to remain in orbit around Afrag for the time being. We have sustained heavy damage during the final part of the mission. As a new colony, Afrag does not yet have the ability to provide needed parts. Please see the attached list of parts and expedite their delivery if possible.
Vezek jotted down another note to himself to forward the parts list to Shipmaster Grej.
As a side note, Igrean society appears to be decaying at a faster than expected rate. Their military has withdrawn from combat completely, and according to their news, there are reports of riots, violence, and something called the madness throughout their cities. This was an unexpected but not unwelcome development.
That was interesting. Judging from their digital creatures report months earlier, the madness wouldn't have caused that level of destruction. It wasn't terribly important, though. The Strack Empire had won.
I look forward to the Empire bringing this war to a swift conclusion.
A miles-wide meteor, having been deliberately ignored by Strachtkel's orbital defense network, landed squarely on Vstracht, bringing the war to a swift conclusion. Private shuttle over capital city Igreus. Baton. Baton had been planning on returning to the surface after the successful launch of Cataclysm, but she halted the shuttle in the air when she noticed the state of the city. Chaos reigned. Buildings were on fire, with nobody to extinguish them or even pretend to care. Hydrants spewed their water freely. Rivers of blood ran down the walkways. Ground vehicles blocked the streets in one contiguous collision that spanned the entire city.
Well, that degraded faster than I expected.
Batone was fresh out of supplements, and it was only a matter of time before she joined those on the ground in an inevitable descent into madness. With nothing else to do, Batone hovered around the city, surveying the damage. She tapped into the city communications network and was mentally assaulted by thousands of implants in the heads of the mad Igreans. They were no longer thinking coherently, but the translator implants were trying their best to resolve the wild thoughts and impulses into actual words.
Meet to the maw.
Epilogue. Following the complete destruction of Tanakh, Tiktik, and other native Igrean crops, the Igrean civilization completely collapsed. Deprived of their nutrients, Igreans reverted to violent and feral packs. Over the next millions of years, they continued to evolve. They developed an additional pair of eyes, for a total of 7. They also developed tear ducts, eliminating the need to lick the eyeballs. Sexual characteristics converged into a single genderless phenotype. One thing that never changed was the bloodthirsty, xenophobic hunger that the native crops had suppressed. Eventually, the Igreans, though they no longer knew that name, redeveloped intelligence, followed by civilization and culture, and even technology. None of it bore any resemblance to the Igrean society of old. The new society was focused almost exclusively on satiating their pervasive hunger for other creatures. Meanwhile, in cyberspace, the digital Igrean society experienced a crisis as many Igreans developed depression and self-quit. Investigation revealed that this problem was only found amongst those without access to neural implants. The newfound hierarchy therefore made it their mission to maintain a technological status quo within the galaxy, ensuring a constant level of available neural implants for running hundreds of thousands and then millions of Igrean minds. Igrean civilization developed and grew in cyberspace, and nobody outside was any the wiser. Meanwhile, Tanais eventually grew tired of immortality and terminated, promoting the Gestalt in 0002 to 0001, and leaving it in charge of the hierarchy. Vostrak's civilization was completely destroyed from the meteor impacts. On the 8 targeted planets, all Vostraki died. Only 10 Vostraki females happened to avoid death by meteor, and the minor, untargeted colonies quickly died off as they lacked a self-sufficient breeding population. On the Vostraki homeworld, Strak-Kel, most life was wiped out. But eventually, a new race of primates evolved as the dominant species. They called themselves humans. Although their geological technologies were impressive, time and tectonic movement had eliminated all traces of the old Vostrak Empire, and the humans were unaware of the fact that they were, in fact, the second sapient species to evolve on their planet. Eventually, the redeveloped descendants of the old Igreans made their appearance on the galactic stage, horrifying everyone else with their lust for sapient flesh. The self-styled hunters terrorized the galaxy for eons. Civilizations rose and fell, and soon a time without hunters was all but forgotten, until an ordinary human bartender named Kevin Jenkins, stuck in legal limbo aboard a Dominion station, Outlook on Forever, beat the brood of 5 poisons to death with their own limbs. But that's another story. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I am your host, the Casual Deathworlder, and this has been the conclusion of Deathworld Origins. I really hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. If you did, please go ahead and smash those like and subscribe buttons and maybe drop us a comment down below. And as always, a huge shout out to my editor, Gregor. Thank you very much, buddy. We are finally done with this one. On to the next project, whatever that may be so far. Now then. Question, who's got the question? I know. What is your favorite science fiction-based weapon? I think I'm in a huge majority here when I say, of course, the lightsaber. It's just freaking cool. But results may vary. Leave your answers in the comments down below. Until next time, be safe, be well. I love you all. Bye-bye.